How did I turn this into this? After color grading over 1000 raw clips, starting as a complete beginner, I realized you don't need complicated tutorials. You just need a simple workflow that you understand. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the exact steps I used to transform my Iceland series so your footage can look just as cinematic, no matter your experience. I'm Kamil, the creator of Shot by Reality, and if you watch till the end, I'll share a trick that will make your shots really pop. Let's jump to Davinci Resolve. Okay, so here we are. I have a few test subjects for today. This is the first one. And the first step is adding a color space transform node. It looks like this. You can find it in Effects tab, and those are my settings. If you want a step-by-step guide on how to set it up, I go through it in another video. I'll link it here and in the description below. Also, if you are not working with the footage in RAW or log format, you can skip this step and go straight to grading. The pipeline will be easy. We will be working on two main nodes: exposure and color. To add a new node, you can press Alt+S, or you can click right and add new node. Okay, so first we can start with contrast and exposure. Also here are the scopes that will help us in color grading the footage and making sure that we are not clipping highlights and shadows. I recommend using Parade or Waveform, but you can also use Vectroscope to see the white balance and the skin tones if you work with skin on your image. Okay, so let's start with the first node. Here in contrast and exposure, we'll make sure that the light of the image is good and it looks dynamic and not flat. If you turn off the CST node, Ctrl D is to turn on and off, you can see that the dynamic range of the image is flat, here on the scopes on the right. You don't want it flat, so the CST made a lot of work for us, but we still have to make sure that the contrast is right. Okay, so to set up the contrast, you have a few options. You can use contrast sliders, primary wheels, color bars, log wheels, or even HDR wheels. I recommend starting with contrast slider, maybe it will give the effect that you want, and later go deeper and deeper if you need finer details. I will change the contrast a little bit, but not too much, because this footage is already very good looking, so I won't change it that much. I'll also add a little bit of lift to add more light in the darker areas. So like you see here, the feathers are black and I don't want to crush them completely. You can check it on the scopes. If they touch the 0, that means that there is a loss of data, so it looks just black without any detail. Now you can see that there is still some detail. If I would go completely down, it will just be dark. If I overdo it, I'm starting to clip the highlights and crush the shadows. So I lose data over there, it's just pure white, pure black. You can see it on the scopes. Okay, so I think that this exposure is done. You can also check the log wheels and use shadows and midtones. It also affects the footage more in the specific spots. So not changing all the rest, just the shadows. And the same thing is with highlights, just the highlights and just the midtones. So you can work with that, and actually I worked a lot with log wheels. If you have a specific problem about your light in the image, you can use the HDR wheels and target a specific area that is sorted by amount of brightness. So you can see that I can affect those dark areas only without the shadows. Okay, so this is the effect with the contrast turned off, and this is with the contrast turned on. You can check the scope that I lifted the shadows a little bit because I know that those are the feathers. I want to show the texture. I don't want to lose details over there. If it was a shadow, maybe I would darken it, but now I don't want to lose the detail. And also I moved the midtones down so they are not over bright. And now we can go to the color node. Yeah, this frame is great. Or maybe this one, where we can see the beak. And now we can adjust the saturation first. I think that it's good because it makes the colors appear. You can see that if I push it too hard, it will make the colors look artificial. Maybe you want this effect, but 99% of the times you don't. So I think that I will change it to around 60. Sometimes you can use color boost that boosts the colors, but I think that it's mostly useful when there is not a lot of colors. Here the colors are really vibrant, so I will just set it to 0 because you can see the red peak and everything. It doesn't need any boosting. So now you can see the difference, or maybe from the side you can see the difference that it made. The beak is much more saturated. And we will get back to the beak later because I have a small tip that will make it even much more vibrant. Okay, so the color is done and that's it, that's this easy. You can of course play with those wheels and achieve the effect that you want. You can, for example, affect the light only. Go to HDR mode. You can see the highlights here. It's this part and this part. I can show you this right here. It's of course overdone. So it could look like this or maybe more like this. So you get the idea. And that's it for the color node. The one thing that you should have in mind is to use a calibrated monitor, or at least check how your footage looks like on a few different monitors, because it will directly affect the colors that you are getting. So you can think that your footage is great, but then you see it on the monitor that is calibrated and it looks, for example, too cold. And when it comes to the footage looking cold or warm, we can now adjust white balance. So I will make a node that is white balance, and here is a slider with temperature, and you can adjust it so when you subtract you make the footage look colder, and when you add it's getting warmer. So of course you are working with small changes here. Once again, this is 0 and I'm going to add just a little bit because I know that it was golden hour and the light should be much yellower. So maybe something like this. This is before and after, before and after. Okay, and now the footage is actually ready. Those are the changes that we've made. So this is with the CST only and our changes. But we can also add some fine-tuning to it. So the next node that I will add is the node with hue versus saturation, or overall hue with curves. So let's go here and let's go back to this beak. Here you can see the curves and we have to choose the hue versus saturation one. And now we can click or drag and select the color that we want to adjust. And now I can adjust the saturation of just the red color. As you can see, it's of course too much, it's overdone, but when I will change it just a little bit, it will make the beak more vibrant. So without and with, without and with, maybe a little bit more. You have to be careful not to overdo it. And also the feet, it's a little bit of a different color, so I can click here. Yeah, it's more to the right, more to the orange side, and I can adjust it a bit, as you can see. Of course, look at the scopes, you are all clipping even the red. So here, I think that's good. And now the beak and the feet are much more lively. Actually, here you can see it even better. So just always find the place that is best for each step of color grading. So here the light comes through the beak, and as you can see, it adds just a little bit of touch, but it will make the whole footage look much better. The last node that I'm going to add is sharpness, and this is where mid-tone detail comes in handy. It can sharpen your footage or soften it. So as you can see, now it's very soft and now it's very sharp. You also shouldn't overdo it, just small changes. Let me zoom in here, and as you can see, this is full sharpness and full softness. I will change it just like to +10 maybe. It depends, of course, on the scene. Each scene is different. It changes the local contrast, so it doesn't look artificial. It just adds additional contrast. It looks very well on the grass or like on the feathers. You can see that those feathers, if I overdo it once again, really pop, but you have to make sure that it doesn't affect negatively the rest of the image. Okay, so this is how the puffin looked before, after CST node, and after our color grading. I think that the results are great, and we can skip to another clip. We will go through a few clips to make you understand the process more and show you different examples. So this is the second clip, and now we apply the CST as always. So this is at the end of our node tree, and now we can start working with the contrast. I will probably add a little bit of contrast here and play with pivot to find the best look. Okay, and now I will boost the lift a little bit, but lower the gamma, because we are really close to the 0 on the scopes, so I don't want it to clip. And now I will adjust the gain a little bit. I will make it higher, but not too high. Okay, and this is before and after. Before and after. As you can see, the footage is now not over bright, but I will go to log wheels and change it more precisely. So here we're playing with shadows. As you can see, now it's too much. So again, I'm going to add a little bit, lower a little bit the shadows, but very small, because I don't want to clip it. Then I will change the highlights. I actually changed this water with highlights. As you can see, now it's like without color and appearance at all. And now it's just pure white, as you can see also on the scopes. So I want to just change it a little bit bump it up, because the water was very bright that day. Here it was reflecting a lot of sun. And now midtones, so everything in between the darkness and the light areas. I'm just going to lift it a little bit, but not too much. Okay, and this is before and after. Now we are going to work on color, so I go to primary wheels again, and I'm going to boost the saturation. So here I don't want to overdo it. I think that around 60 will be okay. It will probably be quite consistent from scene to scene, because it depends mostly on the camera. Of course, when there are a lot of colors, probably you don't have to boost it that much, but it will be somewhat similar on similar scenes. So I think that now the saturation is quite well set. We can check the color boost if we want it. Now you can see that it really boosts this water. Of course, it's overdone a little bit, but I think that I will add this color boost. So here, for example, I make a color boost node, so I can separate the effect of saturation and color boost, and I will set it to like maybe around 4 or 3.5. And now you can see this is without color boost and with color boost, without and with. It's a really small difference. Maybe someone won't notice it in the first place, but it will make the image look much more lively, and that's what you want. You don't want your changes to be very obvious. You want them to affect the viewer's experience. Now we can play with hue versus saturation. So we're going to maybe select the water color. As you can see now, I'm selecting the water, and you can boost the saturation of water only. What this will give is it will allow me to work on the water and not touch the color of the green, because it's easy to overdo the green color and make it look artificial. But water, you can adjust it. You can see now it's without color at all, and now it's too colorful, but we will just boost it a little, so it's much more lively. And this is before and after, before and after, and that's basically it. This is the effect before, after CST, and after color grading. If you would like to change the style or like overall look of the image, you can of course play with the temperature on the different nodes. So now it looks completely different, now it looks completely different. Or you can play with the wheels, so you can, for example, shift the midtones to more blue, and it changes the image. You could change it more to red, more to warm colors to make it appear like it's in the warmer climate. Or you can maybe change the shadows. If you want those dark areas to look more green, you can change it, and now it looks greener. It's all your creative decision, and you should just make it how you like. The viewers won't see the image before, they will only see the final look, so just go with this, what's working for you. Also, another thing that you can do here is hue versus hue. So you can actually change the color of this water by choosing hue versus hue, and now just changing the hue of the water. So it makes the most, I think, creative looks of all those options, because now you can make the water, for example, green or yellow or red. So let's make it green, and now the water looks like this. It looks kind of realistic, but completely unearthly. So this is without and with. When we would like to change this green, and we would move it a little bit more to the green side, you get those lush greenery. Of course, it's artificial right now, and you can move it up, so you can make it yellow, and that's how you achieve the footage that looks like more in the autumn season. So it's not that fresh vegetation, it's much more yellow. Okay, so now the next example. So this beautiful waterfall, but now it's interesting because we have the sky. We of course turn on the CST node, place it at the end. And now we start with contrast. So we go to primary wheels and change the contrast. Here we can add it more because we have very bright sky. Also the water is very bright. You can see the water on the scopes here. The scopes are red from left to right, so the waterfall is around here on the image. Those are our separated channels, but if you go to waveform, you can see it on the one channel. It's right here. So I'm setting the contrast now, not overdoing it. Now I want to lower the shadows a little bit, so the lift, because those are just shadows from the mountains. I can change the gamma a bit, I think a bit down to make it more contrasty. Then I go to log wheels and I will affect directly the shadows. Now you can see I can crush them and it's looking artificial. Maybe you want this look, but probably not. So I will just lower it a little bit. I also check it on the scope, so it's not touching zero, it's okay. Mid-tones, you can see what happens. So the clouds are much more vibrant when I lower the mid-tones, but of course we're losing here all the colors. So as you can see, setting the contrast affects the colors as well without even touching saturation. So it's very important to make the contrast before touching the color node. And now the highlights just a little bit. As you can see, it affects the clouds and the water. I will zoom. The water is actually like not visible at all. And now it's very 3D, but with overexposed parts. So I'm just going to, I'm just bump it a little bit, but not very much. Also, if you want to dive deeper here, you can see the range. So the range and the arrow down and up, it affects the range that the highlights and shadows affect. So everything from 0.333 on the scope and down are considered shadows. You can change it. You can also use the HDR wheels if you want that precise changes. So this is the before of our contrast and after. As you can see, the footage looks much better. And now we can add the color. So we will add saturation. You can see now it's overdone. We will be maybe something like 57, not too much because it's very lively here and it's very green. It's very easy to overdo green colors. Maybe I will add, you can see those, this is color boost. Maybe I will add just a little bit, just like 2 or 1.5 color boost. And this is before and after, before and after. We can probably add another node and play with the temperature. So this is much more cold, this is warm. I think that I'm going to just change it to 70. So before, after, not a big change, but it will change the overall feel of the image. And now we are going to focus on this water to make it look good. So I'm going to add another node and first bump a little bit of sharpness. As you can see now, all this mountain looks much sharper. Of course, we are not overdoing it, so I'm going to add just about like 10 mid-tone detail. We are going to check the effect on whole image. We don't want to destroy the rest. If you want, you can add another node and work with clouds and water on the HDR wheels. In the specular, you can see that we have those fragments of water and also the cloud that are in the specular area, and we can change the exposure to make the water pop a little bit more. So parts of the water are in the highlights area and those parts, you can see those here, are in the specular area, so they are very, very bright. So here is highlights and specular only. So as you can see on the scopes, we are affecting only those highest and we can move it closer to the edge, but this way it will affect the 3D look of the water. So I really like doing it in the waterfall shots. Also the clouds look different, but it's just a very, very small change. Okay, and that's how the footage looked before, after CST, and after color grading. Also here I have another example. We are not going to color it from the beginning, but I want to show you the other useful node, that is hue versus luminance. Okay, so after contrast and color, we are going to add a new node. It's hue versus luminance. And I want to work on those leaves. As you can see, the weather here is kind of moody, there is not a lot of sun, actually no sun at all, and it makes my footage look a little bit flat when it comes to the brightness of those leaves and the colors. I can choose the hue versus luminance right here on the curves, just like the hue versus saturation next to it, and I can choose the green color from the leaves, for example right here. As you can see, it was selected, and now we can boost the luminance, so the brightness actually of those green colors. As you can see now, no light at all and bright leaves. We have very big difference in how it looks overall. You've just learned how to tackle majority of the scenes solo, but here comes the game changer I teased at the start. Look at this waterfall. The conditions were moody and the sky behind it was bright. Most people color correct the whole image only and end up with something that feels flat or artificial. But what if you could make just the waterfall pop and have the effect track the movement naturally, frame by frame? Let me show you exactly how I did it. As you can see, the waterfall doesn't look bright at all. In real life it was very bright, but if I adjust the gain or maybe highlights, the sky is overexposed. So to deal with this, we are going to add power window. You can choose here and later choose one of the shapes. I'm choosing the circle because it fits to the shape of the waterfall, and I'm going to change the size. Now, every effect that we make, so for example, adding the gain, is affecting the things only inside the circle. So if I play it, it moves with the circle. I can also adjust the blur of the effect, so it looks much more natural. It doesn't look like it's just cut circle from the video that has another effect. So I am going to adjust the circle to fit with the size of the waterfall. Then I'm going to bump up the midtones just a little bit to make it much more lively. Actually, it's quite a big change. I can change also the contrast and maybe even go to HDR wheels, so I can change the exposure and make it brighter. So now we should adjust the blur, but it's not a big deal right here because we are affecting just the midtones, not the shadows, so the effect doesn't go through the mountains. And this is our effect. Of course, as you can see, the effect is not moving with the waterfall, so it's actually following the camera movement. So now we are going to make the circle track the waterfall. It is actually very easy. You just have to put the circle on your object and then go to tracker window. Then you can just click play and the tracker will track the object inside the circle. So now, as you can see, the circle is staying with the waterfall and not following the movement of the camera. So this is how the footage looked before, and now this is how it looks after. Want to see this color grading workflow in action on some Icelandic landscapes? Check out my cinematic series where I use this exact workflow. Now there is just one thing left to show you. If you check the clips, I have two different scenes from this waterfall and I have to color grade them as well. So what I will do is copy the grade from this footage to those two scenes that were shot in very similar conditions. So to do this, I'm going to choose the scene that is already colored and then I hold Shift and click to the last scene that I want to color. It makes all the scenes in between selected as well. Then I click on the colored scene with the right mouse button and click Apply Grade. And now you're ready with few scenes that are colored. You have to just make sure that the colors are not shifted. I hope this helped you understand the color grading process. If it did, consider subscribing so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you would like to dive deeper, check out this video. It might be what you need next. And remember, let your films be shot by reality.